This is the statement we found because we kept saying there must be some people who have seen these reports, they have looked into it, or they asked for further investigation, and the only person we found has been you.
Wow.
And with this quote, and you have stated, if the facts are correct, Texas taxpayers are in fact in danger, and our education system, not to mention the safety of our citizens, seems to be in peril. And this was in reference to the Gulen network. We have had teachers, some of them have come here with the work visa from Turkey. A few whistleblowers who have contacted us, they contacted me in 2008 with my organization for whistleblowers, but they said they were very scared to come forward with their names because then their families back home in Turkey, they would be placed in danger because they had a lot of power, Gulen network. But despite the fact that they went to the FBI, and I know these for the facts, they provided documentation how they were being extorted, paying half of the money they were receiving from the states, whether here in Texas or elsewhere, contributed to various questionable NGOs around the world, some of them in Indonesia, etc. Nothing has been done. Despite the fact some of these schools have been raided, when we contact the FBI, they still say after 10 years, for some cases, still is under investigation.
They've been asked to leave several states.
Yes. In fact, here are some interesting facts. Russia banned them, Gulen charter schools in Russia. They don't have the same charter school system. And they said they are illegalized. They have found the shady activities, money laundering, etc. 6 months ago, Pakistan. And Pakistan is famous for their madrasas. Even Pakistan banned them and categorized them as extremists. And they shut down the schools, and they kicked out the entire network from Pakistan. And it's mind-boggling. They're operating here in the United States with very little oversight. The network itself, their value is placed somewhere between $25 billion and $50 billion.
You've been to their big building down in Houston?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And because of the money and the power that money brings and the PR network that they have put together, nobody's doing their jobs. And this goes from the executive branch to the legislative branch. And again, finding you standing up here in Texas and saying this, we said we need to talk with you. First of all, we wanted to really express our appreciation, praise you, saying this is a courageous act when knowing that you are the lone voice here, trying to bring the attention to the
It's had its consequences.
How so?
Oh, I don't want to go into all that.
Well, this is the case. This has been the case everywhere in all the states.
Oh yeah. Listen, when we started out on this, it was concerning to me because I'm a former banker. So I believe in a lot of oversight, regulation.
Sure.
And I support charter schools, but only if they are subject to the very same accountability that our public schools are. It concerned me when I got into looking into this that the first thing I heard was that they had brought people from Turkey to construct their buildings. And I thought, well, you know, if they're coming over here, why don't our people do the construction? Then I heard that there was a carpenter that came here to teach American history. That bothered me a little bit too. So that's when we started going to the education agency and asking them, and we listed out a number of things that concerned us. And they came right back and said that we've investigated it and everything's okay. I continued to get a lot of feedback from people around the state and particularly in my district. And it concerned me. And so I went back to them and I asked them, I said, maybe you need to do a further investigation. I'm an old bank examiner. I believe in regulation. And they said no, they felt that they had done a sufficient job. So then I went to our Texas Rangers and also other law enforcement, because I felt like that there were too many issues, too many unanswered questions, and I felt like that it needed to be investigated. It concerned me that we were giving them a lot of money, tremendous amount of money. And the accountability of all that money, these are state taxpayers' money. And I did not see the accountability that I felt like is very necessary if we're going to spend the kind of money that we do, and it's a big number. And then I found out that some of my friends and colleagues that were supportive, their reasoning was that they had the highest rating that you could have. Well, when I found out who was the doing the rating, they were rating themselves. Well, I'm pretty good when I rate myself, but anyway, it's one of those things that I kept going back. We don't have accountability, and yet that's money that's coming out of the taxpayers' hands, and we're allowing them to compete. And you know, here again, I'm in favor of charter schools, but I want accountability. And I did not feel like they were being subject to the same accountability as our private schools. And then on an international front, I got very concerned because from a military standpoint and from on legislative, I've served on committees that would require me to move out and be involved in and whenever I would go to another country, just as a matter of curiosity, I would ask them about the people that are running Harmony schools, and there was great concern on the part of all of them. I did not find one country that was supportive. When I went to Turkey on a different reason, because I was a chairman of the military task force and on the board of the National Conference of State Legislators. While I was there, I met some folks, and it concerned me because I felt like that there was a lot of unanswered questions that were coming out of Turkey. When I got back to the States, there were several that ended up kind of following me, and I caught up with them in Cleveland, Ohio, and they wanted to talk, and at the time I didn't feel it was appropriate to be, because I was there on another mission. Then I went to Chicago a few months later, and they tracked me down to my hotel there. And same thing, I was involved in something else, and I didn't really, I was concerned enough that I just didn't want to get involved with that outside of the state. Then I came back home, and I live in a rural area, and I got a phone call one Saturday asking me where my office is, and they had the address. Is it still there? And I said, yes. I said, we'll be there at noon. And so I went down, talked to them. Very nice people, very, very, very cordial. They had tremendous testimonies about young people that go to school and how well they've done, and they even had someone there whose children were going to the school, and they were very complimentary. They've invited me to their school on many occasions. I told them I wasn't interested in coming at their invitation, but I might drop in. And I haven't worked that out yet, because I'm not on the education committee. I'm in pensions, and I'm in military issues, and I do a lot of stuff on our border. But I was seeing some overlapping things that were bothering me. And you know, in the legislature, you put your hand on the Bible and you swear to uphold all the laws of the state of Texas. And I was feeling that there was something that I was uneasy about. They've hired some very well-regarded lobbyists that represent them. People that are elected to look after our education system are very complimentary of them. They've invited some of my colleagues over to Turkey to spend time and you know, get the tour. I've turned that down always. I did not feel like it was something that I would be comfortable with at all. I've been to Turkey, but it was as a member of the National Conference of State Legislators, and I went as a committee chairman, and it was interesting to see what was happening in Turkey. There's certainly unrest there. There's the international challenges that you're seeing because of their close relationship with other countries that are not necessarily friendly to the U.S. And we had many meetings with Parliament. I had many meetings with some of their media people, and every time I would mention this, I would get a lot of concerned. So I came back not feeling comfortable, and again saying, if the state of Texas is putting money in it, we need to know more, and that's why I went and I've asked the investigative authorities to look into it. But here again, I've got some people that they're friends, they're people that I know, and they believe that they're doing a good job in educating the children that they educate. I'm not convinced at that. Certainly, they've come to my office and they've told me, and they're very interested in making friends. Turkey's been an ally of ours since the early 1800s. They're our dear friend, and I'm not interested in creating any kind of issue that would create a problem there. But on the other hand, I don't see a lot of support for Harmony schools out of Turkey.
No, they have requested, they have provided, they have been providing documents to get Fethullah Gulen extradited back to Turkey.
Yeah.
And Amsterdam Group, they have been supplying the Justice Department, the State Department, with all this documented information. For a brief period, I worked for the FBI with top secret clearance and above, right after 9/11. This was 16 years ago. And because you just mentioned that it has come with its consequences, speaking up. And I took my oath, citizenship oath, seriously as well. And after I witnessed certain things, I didn't leak to the media. I went to the appropriate Congressional committee. I went to the Senate Judiciary Committee, met at the time with Senator Grassley and Senator Leahy. They formed a bipartisan task force to investigate. And this is 2001, 2002. And then I was slapped with several gag orders, and my case was stopped at the Supreme Court. They were saying what she is saying may be true, but she can't say it because everything about what she knows is classified.
And this was in your role as an FBI investigator?
Analyst. I was an analyst. I worked with very good agents. They were very frustrated because they had accumulated more than enough evidence on Gulen's network in the United States back then in 2002 to go to court. But instead of that taking place, because of pressure from above, that was pushed into counterintelligence, meaning you can only listen through FISA, but you can't take action, even though it involved U.S. interests or operations against the United States interests, even though it involved high-level people in various government agencies, federal government, who had been, they call it the hooking process. It starts with those nice meetings, taking to Turkey, 5-star hotels. There may be a little gift to your spouse. They may be a cushy job for your son. And then they come and they ask for uncomfortable favors. And when you say no, then you start receiving blackmail. And it has been working. And their financial hub for the laundering operations is and has been Chicago. Illinois, they have everyone in Illinois.
Yeah, you're verifying some of the things that I've learned, and it's very concerning to me because this last session we we approved funding for facilities for all charter schools, but I know they're going to get their portion. And I haven't run that down, but it is a group that I think is worthy of more understanding and more regulation, and one that I'm not comfortable with what I know about them.
Well, now here's where we keep coming to. We stopped by the Education Commissioner's office. We talked with one of his assistants, and he said, well, to investigate this is not our jurisdiction. It needs to be Texas Rangers. Then you go to them and they say it's Congress. Then they say it's the governor or the lieutenant governor's office. And you keep making circles
They're
about
not telling me that.
Who, as far as, we have some concerned parents. And when they call and they ask us and they say, okay, who do we go and demand and ask for investigation, more oversight? More oversight. That's all they are asking. It's our kids' education, more oversight, and it's our taxpayers' money. Where should they go? Should they put the priority on Congress, or should they put it on the Department of Education, lieutenant governor's or governor's office? Where should they go?
Well, it's kind of this is sort of a theory that I always operated under when I was a bank examiner. If I don't know about it, I'm not really responsible. But once I learn about it, then I own some of the responsibility, and that's why I felt like it was my responsibility to stand up. And I've talked to my colleagues on the House floor. Some of them, they're just not convinced. And when I tell them about what's happening in other states, it piques their interest. And when I went to talk to the investigative authorities, I was encouraged that they are doing investigation. Now, that is a long, drawn-out process. I know that, and you yourself have mentioned how long you've been kind of chasing it.
But
why don't you tell me?
Back then, nobody had heard of Gulen.
Yeah, I know.
In 2002, I was a lone voice. People would say, "What are you talking about?" I'm saying this man is establishing these underground.
Now, when you say this man, you're talking about Mr. Gulen.
Yes,
okay.
And his networks, which are all connected.
Oh, well, he has nothing to do with Harmony School.
Oh, absolutely nothing.
They've told me that.
Absolutely nothing. In fact, they qualified by saying he has nothing really formal or legally to do with Harmony Schools. I know it's kind of an interesting coincidence for us because your last name is Flynn, and it's the same exact spelling as Lieutenant General Flynn.
Ah.
And
I am a general.
You are.
It's my star right there.
Oh, well.
Right here. That red flag.
See.
But I'm the little general, he's the big general.
Well, what happened with him, he was made an example. He wrote this amazing article.
I know.
And we have been the only news organization, and by that I mean the only news organization. I have been in touch with people intimately associated with the case. They made him an example, and all he did, and it was very courageous, he actually stood up and said it.
Yeah.
And he's been paying the price for that.
Yes.
And I know Director Mueller's scope of investigation is supposed to be the Russiagate and whatever they are calling it, but the main focus to squeeze ended up being all the stuff with Gulen.
I don't know General Flynn, who you're talking about.
Honorable.
He is a very honorable man.
Honorable family. His brother is a general as well.
Yeah, and we're not related in any way.
Okay, well, Flynn must be the Irish name.
It was kind of a, it's certainly been interesting to me because of the name, but I've also, I've spent many years in the military, and so I have knowledge of what I believe him to be an honorable man, and it's been disappointing to me to see how he's been treated.
Yes.
On the other hand, there are certain criterias in government, particularly if you're having to admit to something that is not legal, you can't lie. then it hurts your credibility, and that's a shame because he had a very distinguished service from all that I've been able to gather. I've never met him, so I don't know, but
and his brother, he's a great general as well, impeccable record. The whole family, he's coming from a very hardworking,
I was real
family.
surprised when I found out of his connections with Turkey, because I didn't know it when I got into this. It was kind of interesting. Of course, my colleagues on the floor, they know my concern and it's become a passion to me because I just see that there's something out there that I haven't been able to put my hand on, but I'm very uncomfortable with where it's going.
Failing.
That's right, and when you feel that, I guess it goes back to that what I told you. I'm a bank examiner, and you know, I used to examine banks, and when you examine banks, everything's not always as it appears when you walk in the door.
Yes.
But then when you get into looking at things, it's amazing how it's kind of like the example I use, the onion. You start peeling it back, and when that concern is there, you're not doing your duty and your responsibility, your sacred honor, if you don't follow up on it. And that's why I've stayed involved.
And there are some amazing people who haven't given up on truly active citizenry. And they have been, and they are going to ask us and the people that they believe to be experts on this issue from whatever angle, and say, where should we focus in terms of filing requests, demands of investigations, oversight, true oversight, because after all, it's our tax money. It's our hard-earned tax money. Where should they start? Congress?
Well, when you say Congress, you're talking about the United States Congress.
Talk about in Texas.
Okay, in Texas, it's the legislature, and that's why I feel an obligation to be involved. And at this particular point, I haven't received a lot of support. I have not gone to our authorities, our top 3 statewide officials, because I'm not comfortable that I have the answers that they would be asking, and that's why I can go directly to investigative authorities, and when I've gone to them in their cursive reviews, I've been told that I'm on the right target.
How about congressional subpoenas, investigative bodies within Congress? Like, I went through that inside the SCIP. I know there will be maybe 2, they have already retired FBI agents. They have their retirement, they have never blown the whistle, but I know if they were subpoenaed by any congressional or court bodies, they would tell the truth, because again, they're honorable men. There are some teachers with information who would provide willingly under oath to any kind of congressional investigative bodies. There are people who would.
I think so too. I do too, because they come. But the problem has been they don't have the verifiable evidence.
Have you watched Killing Ed, the documentary?
I haven't seen it, but I had someone tell me about it.
I really recommend watching this documentary. It took Mark S. Hall 5 years to make it, and it was 100%. And he's an award-winning, multi-award-winning filmmaker based in Austin, Texas. And it's based on facts, documented facts, witnesses. It's a good starting point. I know a year and a half ago they had their screening. I don't know, I think I have a trailer copy. I would encourage people who are not familiar to watch it, including yourself. And today, several active citizens, they came and they said they went and they met with their own district's representatives and asked them to look into it. And that helps because unfortunately, their influence with media has been
the public, you know, it's like anything that comes up. It's all about education, and you have to have, you know, you can throw out a lot of, I can scare someone just the knowledge that I have. But I want to have facts, and to just throw out statements is not what I want to do. I want to gather facts, and that's why I ask in written letters to be able to. And like I said, I've been encouraged when they tell me that they're going forward. And because it concerns me that other states have asked them to leave, and yet we're encouraging them. And I look at the dollars that are going in there, and public education is the second largest item in our budget. Used to be the first, but healthcare is kind of moving it out. They're pretty even right now. In fact, 80% of the state Texas budget is healthcare and education. So I believe that's pretty close to accurate. But anyway, I just see that I would rather go into our accountability of public education as opposed to the charter school that I'm not comfortable with, because it seems like you just can't get comfortable when you ask questions. And when I talk to other people who have visited with the head, and they say, no, we don't, he's not involved with this, and yet everything leads back to him.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's not just from what I've heard here. Like I told you, I've done international travel, and I've made a point whenever I had an opportunity to ask him to throw the names out. And it's there always is a concern of the individuals I'm talking to, and that being the case, then it's kind of a cliche, and I hate to use it, but if there's a lot of smoke, there might be some fire, and there's a tremendous amount of smoke.
Well said. As far as the committees are concerned, the focus should be for the citizens, residents of state of Texas. Committees, education subcommittee, which ones would you say the top 3 committees to go visit and request investigations?
The committee that if the good people in my district allow me to come back and serve another term, my request will be to be on an education committee.
Okay.
Because I think that's where you need to do it. That's where the accountability needs to come from.
No, you're absolutely right.
I tell you what, all you have to do is you go to any of the superintendents of any of our public schools, and they'll fill you full of their concerns, but they don't have it nailed down.
No.
And so it's if you don't have facts, it's hard to move forward. And they've done a very good job of covering what they do. When you sit there and you look at the they always bring out the star students, and that's why I would rather just kind of drop in when nobody's expecting me, because I don't want it to be prepared. They've been in my office a couple of times.
Yeah, they excel in PR and marketing. That's for sure.
Both sides.
Well, we thank you very much. We are planning. We have formed the just started our movement. This coalition with various groups, active citizens in Texas. We're going to be here for the primaries.
I have no intention of backing up. When I think that's part of my responsibility as an elected official to look after the taxpayers of Texas, and I'm not convinced that this is the best way to spend money.
I believe you're going to have a lot of support because, as you said, that gut feeling, a lot of good citizens have that. And the whole thing is with the media blackout, they haven't heard that in fact there has been representatives who have been standing up for their rights and for that kind of accountability, that kind of oversight and transparency. And knowing that, they know where that support actually, where it's deserved. And we are looking forward to this coming primaries and the coming election in November. And we're going to be here, we're going to cover it. We have spoken with a few other bigger than us, media outlets.
Really?
And
That's
yes,
good.
and they have big studios here. This is just the beginning. And,
I think so too, because it's like I said, education of your own mind.
Oh, absolutely.
And letting the people know, because there's so much concern right now of outside influences in our country, and you know, I don't want to make it a bigger thing than it is, but I think it is pretty big, and that's what concerns me, because I think there's other things involved than just a small little school educating kids.
It's fun. During our lunch meeting after our visit of a few offices here, we were talking about why things have gotten both state level and national level with Congress, and the director of the film was talking about, like, the good old generation is gone, so the past 15, 20 years is a different mentality. It's like totally different.
It is.
And the formula has changed, and this whole thing has changed. And again, with many people who express exasperation, we just have to remind them that they need to look at themselves as responsible parties too, because again, people can't say, well, why don't they fix this and why don't they fix that, and do nothing about it. And they need to line up and really give their support. And I think as far as example, providing it as an example is concerned, we can't do better than Texas.
Well, you know what, we're in a transition in our state. We're, you know, always been two parties, but there are other influences that are having a lot of influence on our political system. And that being the case, there's one group that wants to spend no money on public education, and there's other groups that is convinced that, you know, we're just strangling everybody. We're not putting the money where it needs to be. There is a medium, there is
Yes.
a happy, and there is a lot of folks that I know, my colleagues. I represent a number of school districts, and have worked hard to try to build up the trust with them. But there is this strong voice that feels like that we're putting way too much money in public education, and yet they're willing to put money in the charter schools that do not have the same accountability. That's where my concern is.
No, and that's absolutely true, because you can throw all the money you want. If you don't have good oversight,
That's right.
if you don't have accountability, actually you're going to end up with something worse. And it's interesting, among developed countries, we keep falling in ranking. And when you look at the money we put and compare it to many of in terms of percentage, you know, I'm not talking about number, you know, we can compare the population in the United States with, let's say, Denmark or Finland. We throw much more money in there, but doesn't come with the needed oversight and accountability. We experiment with so many things just based on lobbying, you know, and that is whether it's the No Child Left Behind, whether it's the Common Core. You know, we put the kids through it, then we come back 8 years later saying, well, we spent billions on it, now let's shelve it. It doesn't work, now let's try this one. And it's a struggle as a mother for me with my child.
The best judgment of what a young person is being educated or not is the classroom teacher. The classroom teacher knows where that student is when they come to their class,
Yes.
and they know where they are when they leave.
Yes.
And that's where we need to strengthen that.
And
and all
there
these
are
tests
so
that
many
we do,
great teachers.
Yeah, all these tests
They have
that
lost
we do.
power. They feel like they have
that's
zero
right.
control. They have zero say. Everything is top to bottom.
That's right.
And they spend, and I'm in contact with my child. She's in 4th grade, and I have had great relationship with all her teachers. They are so tied up with the paperwork and bureaucracy, the amount of time spent on, you know, not one size fits all, but they want to. The desire is there,
There's no
but
question.
they truly have taken the joy out of teaching, the honor out of teaching. They
And
have
they're
turned
the
it
lowest.
into.
They're the lowest paid on the
Yeah.
scale, and yet those are the ones that we're asking to produce.
That's absolutely
and that
true.
that
That's
is,
absolutely true.
Our last session, we had an opportunity to increase the classroom teachers' salaries, and I'm
Good.
very much supportive of that. But through the process, we didn't get to pass it the way I would like to have, and yet we put $60 million into facilities for charter schools. And I know the biggest portion of that money is probably going to go someplace where I'm not comfortable.
That's right.
And so I think that here again, when you talk to people that are involved in education on a daily basis, not the bureaucrats, but you talk to the people that are involved in education, the Harmony schools are very concerning to them. And that's why I'm going to continue on my road. I feel like I have an obligation to try to bring it to the attention, to make sure where that money's going, if it's going to educating our kids.
Hi, I'm Sibel Edmonds. This Newsbud event was made possible only with our community members' donations. This was just the beginning. So much can be done, and there is so much we can do together. I'm determined to go back to Texas and unseat some of these pocketed politicians. However, this will only be possible with your support. The time to act is now. Visit newsbud.com today and make a donation. Please don't wait. Together, we can.